I think it's really important to know yourself. I know a lot of the time, especially with the sort of society we live in these days, with Facebook, with Instagram, I find that people know more about other people than they do themselves. So I think it's important that they get to know themselves and find out what makes them tick, and all the good stuff that makes them tick in a positive way, work hard on it. And the stuff that's negative in their life, work hard on not having that around. So I guess get to the point is to know yourself and knows what makes you click.
And that was Preston Campbell. Welcome to episode 35 of the Vision Board podcast. I'm Tristan Campbell, alongside me, Jonny Stufko.
What's up, Tristan Campbell? How you doing?
Yeah, pretty good, pretty excited. This is a dude I've looked up to since childhood, a guy that played for my team, the Cronulla Sharks, and he's a big inspiration. He's only small in stature, huge heart, and someone that I want to share with you.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I've never heard of Preston coming into this. I've done my research. This guy is full of courage, full of compassion, does a lot of amazing things in the community around Australia. I'm excited to hear his him sharing his knowledge.
Life, footy. I don't think we're going to touch much on footy, but there'll be a few questions here and there, but really, just to pick his brain will be awesome. But before that, just a big shout out to you guys. You've been supporting us, leaving us those awesome reviews. Really, really appreciate it, guys. So please just keep sharing with your friends, and we'll just keep bringing some really good shows for you guys.
We love the sharing of knowledge. I love also when we're, if you're living in the Sydney area, if you're training near us, if you're at one of the gyms that we work at. Lately, people, a couple people come up to me, just giving feedback. I love feedback. You do as well. You can reach us at our email, info@thevisionboardpodcast.com. Check us out on Twitter. You know how to get a hold of us. Keep supporting the movement. We'll keep supporting you and keep bringing on amazing guests like Presto.
Definitely. And big shout out to our sponsors, Populis. Populis is a boutique management company, really helping those businesses that really need that next stage of growth really find that.
Yep. Populis puts themselves in a position to help businesses and companies evolve. So if you're really into that sort of thing, leadership, happiness, living your life on a specific righteous path, check them out. I know they got a podcast shooting across the airwaves on iTunes, SoundCloud.
Yeah, it's a leadership show, so check that out. And also check out their website, www.populis.com.au. That is spelled Populis.
.com.au.
All right, well, without further ado, we've got Preston Campbell. So here is Preston.
It makes me wanna creep. I got something for your mind, your body, and your soul. I got something for your mind, your body, and your soul.
The Vision Board Podcast, hosted by Jonny Stufko and Tristan Campbell.
All right, our special guest today, we've got Preston Campbell in the house. Preston from Tinga in country New South Wales. He played 267 first-grade games for the Cronulla Sharks, Penrith Panthers, and also the Gold Coast Titans. He represented country origin. He also captained the Indigenous All-Stars. He was Player of the Year, Dalian Player of the Year while he was at the Sharks. He was a premiership winner at the Penrith Panthers, and he was the man behind the NRL Indigenous All-Stars concept, while also being highly active in the community, supporting a number of initiatives. We welcome Preston Campbell. Presto, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you very much. Geez, that was a long introduction.
Yeah, man, that's because you've just got so many accolades, my man.
Tristan was practicing his breathing before we had you on because it is a long list, Preston. Very impressive.
And that was one breath, mate.
Presto, just where I want to begin, man. Like, you're very similar in stature to myself. You were 167 centimetres, which was 5'5" for our American listeners, and also you were about 73 kilos, which would be about 160 pounds. Now, playing in an environment in NRL where you've got massive giants, how did you do it, man?
Oh, mate, sometimes I ask myself the same question. It's one of those things. I always say to people, because when they do meet me for the first time, that's exactly what they go straight to. My size, and it actually surprised them how small I was compared to most guys I played against. But I always say to them, mate, the training that we did, it was specific for what I needed to be able to play the game. So obviously I couldn't do what the big guys did, but at the same time the big guys couldn't do what I could do. So always knew just there was an advantage for myself being small, just like it's an advantage for the guys being big. So I trained specifically for what I needed to be able to not just play the game well, but survive in the game. Yep. And it's one of those things, you work out what works best for you, and it was one of those things I just stuck to it, and it worked for me, mate.
Preston, one of my favorite athletes when I was a kid growing up in the States was a running back, played for the Lions. His name was Barry Sanders, and he was smaller than everybody, and he ended up becoming one of the greatest running backs in the league. And he talked about when everyone talked to him, they would always mention, Barry, you're smaller than everyone. How do you do it? Similar to Tristan asking you. He would always respond, that's why he was so good, because he was smaller. Could you talk to us a little bit about one of those things that you mentioned that you could do better than the bigger guys? What was that, in your opinion, that made you able to succeed?
Well, first and foremost, I could move quicker than the bigger guys, both laterally and forward. I attributed a lot of my success to my speed in the game, and again laterally, the bigger guys move a lot slower. But also, rugby league, unlike the game of NFL, it goes for 80 minutes. You have 40 minutes of two halves, and it's pretty high intensity. So for me to be really, really fit and to be able to run a certain distance at a certain speed was always important. So for me to be able to be fast, I worked hard on that. And to be fit in my endurance and stuff like that. I always worked out on that sort of stuff. So, and again, it was one of those things that's needed in this sort of game. And it's not rocket science, mate. You go out and you train hard, and you put it into practice on the field. I always said, people paid me. Well, the clubs paid me to train because I love rugby league that much. I look forward to playing the game. I always said I was a professional trainer because I got paid to train.
Yeah, good point. Preston, what advice would you have for young kids that maybe they might be the smallest in their class and also, wanting to play sport? What advice would you have for them?
Well, I guess just work hard. I know it's so cliche and they'll hear it a lot in their life, but it's just so important for them to realise that practice, they say practice makes perfect. For me, practice means you just make less mistakes. And it's one of those things that I practiced so much that when I went out on the field, and there were times where I was tired, but because I practiced so much, it was just something that automatically happened. It was an instinct almost. So just go out and practice. And there will be times for these smaller guys that they will get told that maybe they won't make it because of their size, and a lot of people have got that in the past, and they'll get it in the future, and people are getting it now. It's one of those things that they should try and ignore, and move towards being whatever they want to be in whatever sport.
So growing up in Tinga, I've done my research. Tristan filled me in on how small of a community that is. Was that something, playing in the NRL when you were a younger kid, was that your ultimate dream? Was that your goal, of just doing that one thing?
No, well, it's a funny story, and I never wanted to be a rugby league player for the reason we were speaking about before. People told me that I wouldn't make it because of my size. And so I don't really fit the profile. I never fit the profile to be a rugby league player. I mean, my first year of NRL, I was less than 60 kilos. So
wow.
That'll show you, that's an indication of how small I really was. I retired at 73 kilos, so I played most of my career, from 65 to 73 kilos. And it was one of those things where, these guys might be right. There were times where I did struggle because of my size. I wanted to be a teacher growing up. I had a great experience in my primary school years, and I wanted to be a primary school teacher. But the way things happened back home in Tinga, I kind of, for a lot of people, your direction or your goals change a little bit when things come up, and something come up for myself, and really I need to get into something really quick to look after my girlfriend and my daughter who is due.
Preston, your highlight reel, if somebody would look at it, it's filled, the two words I think of is speed and just reckless abandonment. When now if you would Google yourself, and our listeners maybe from America who aren't familiar with you, you really talk about now in this stage of your evolution, patience and understanding. Could you talk to us a little bit in context what you mean by that when you bring up how people should carry themselves with a little bit more patience and understanding?
Sometimes I think not many people know that I'm a bit of an advocate around mental health, and I'm not one of those guys that go out and preach, and all of this sort of stuff. I kind of understand that people need their space around this sort of issue, and I just find giving subtle little messages is probably the way to go. For me now, I take everything that I've learned in the past and I try to share my story, and hopefully people will take from that. And there was a time where I struggled big time with who I was, not understanding who I was and what my purpose was in life. And now I realise my role as a human being, and I just try to let people know that whatever position they're in or whatever situation they're in, maybe just think about where you are and work out best ways that you can get out of that. That's going to be appropriate to yourself and appropriate to the people around you.
Could you talk to us a little bit about when that moment was for you, when you realized your purpose?
It was a funny one. Or when I say funny, it was one of those things that come up, and it was almost like a light bulb. There was a light bulb, and it happened back in 2003. It was midway through the footy season, and like I said, I was having a bit of trouble myself, and I kind of found out, well, I'm playing rugby league, and I'm doing something that I enjoy doing. There's really not much else that I have that's troubling me outside of that. So just enjoy what you're doing at the moment, and see how things go. And from there, since then, I've sort of been learning a lot more about myself and how I sort of carry myself in community, in society. I've always been a guy that didn't speak too much. Coming from the country, from bush in New South Wales, I was quite a shy bloke. But understanding that if I wanted to make it in the rugby league world, I'd have to step out of my comfort zone. And I know a lot of people now, with whatever direction or whatever they want to go into, that could sometimes hold them back. And it's something that I've learned to do, understanding that me being quiet is not going to help me, but also understanding that people are quiet, and you need to be patient with them sometimes.
Preston, what's your best advice for people at the moment that might be doing it a little bit tough, maybe suffering in silence, so to say? What would be your best advice to them?
And look, this is coming from somebody that's been in a very, very dark place. I mean, when you talk about mental illness, for me, we have people that have their struggles, and they try different ways to deal with it. Now, I think they call it negative mechanisms. So people will go and drink, people will go on drugs, and they'll find other ways to try and stem the pain, the hurt that they're going through. For me, I just went to the ultimate extreme. Things were going on, I didn't fall into the drugs, I didn't fall into alcohol, because I saw what it done to my community. I saw what it does to people. So I didn't want to do that. I just went to the extreme, and I just wanted to end my life. I wanted to die. So I know how people can feel sometimes, no matter what situation has caused them to feel like they are. And again, this is another cliche. Things do get better. They do get better if you have patience with yourself, if you have patience with others, and if you have more of an understanding of yourself and understanding of other people. It's one of those things that sometimes we just react on impulse. We react on our feelings. And sometimes that reaction could be hurtful for, not just for yourself, but it could be hurtful for the people that you have a relationship with.
Could you talk to our listeners and myself and Tristan included a little bit about the Preston Campbell Foundation?
Yeah, for most of my adult life, I just wanted to give back to community. I guess coming from somewhere where we really didn't have too much, and myself being successful in footy, knowing what influence rugby league could have on community, and not just the rugby league community. I just know that people with profile, they tend to get a bit more airtime, lack of a better way to put it, with people in community. Sometimes people in profile, people like to listen to what they've got to say, and they tend to take it on board a little bit more. So that's basically what the Preston Campbell Foundation is about. Again, we have a real big focus on mental health, emotional, social well-being, and with that, we find that there's so much that connect with it. If somebody's got a job, for example, they feel better about themselves. They find themselves a little more confident because they're reacting with more people. They're stepping outside their comfort zone. And that's what we do as an organisation. We try and get people out of their comfort zone, but also understanding that, they may feel a little stressed around that, and understanding that with that little push, they can go from that shy person and develop into, a person that could succeed in something.
Definitely. Preston, are you still doing much work with the NRL?
No, I kind of steered away from rugby league. Only because rugby league being a big part of my life, I kind of just I knew I would have struggled if I'd have stayed in there. I knew I had to move on for rugby league, so I'd left. I think I retired in 2011, and since then I'd just been working in community, just digging my head into that sort of stuff, just so I could not forget about footy, just so that my transition was a little bit easier. Now I can go back to rugby league. In that time, I think it's almost 5 years now since retiring. In that time, I've probably seen one or two halves of rugby league. I haven't watched much football in the last 5 years, and I'm just starting to feel like I'm right to go back now and start enjoying watching footy. But not just that, I'd like to be able to maybe get involved with a club and do some stuff around mentoring.
Yeah, I think you'll be outstanding for that sort of role.
We definitely need more people like that, Preston. I feel like especially coming from there's some sort of stigma around males, especially in this maybe in your 20s, that we feel that it's not okay to communicate with each other and talk about how we're feeling. And I feel also it's interesting. So you've carried yourself while you were playing. You won the league's highest award, always with like the most integrity. And where the game and where the sport of NRL is now, I know in the offseason there were stories of guys, acting like, very childish behaviors for professional athletes. Do you feel that there needs to be a system in place, like in the NFL, for instance, when these guys transition from amateur to professional, they put them through courses on how to be a professional, how to public speak, etc. I guess the question is, are there any courses right now for the NRL guys? And if there isn't, what would you do to implement to enable these young guys a rightful path?
Yeah. Look, there are things in place for these guys. They part of playing, especially in under 20s, they need to be either at school, they need to be working or studying. So if they don't do either of those three things, they're not allowed to play footy. Because in the past you've had people that have played rugby league, and look, they've had successful careers, achieved high honours. Then they finish their careers and they come out and then they just feel like there's nothing for them because they put so much into the game, they didn't put enough into themselves. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
They're professional athletes, and that's what they do full time. Where they're trying to put things into place now where these athletes can be doing stuff while they're playing, so that when they're finished, they've got something in the place that could help them carry on, whether it's a new career path outside of football or outside of rugby league, or whether it's a career path within rugby league. We talk about young guys, rugby league, I guess, like NFL, they're a different kind of circle. A lot of guys get looked after. And I know for myself personally, this is speaking on with experience, a lot of my life was managed for me. So I got told what to wear, I got told what to eat, got told where to go. It's so structured, and I myself, I fell into the trap of people doing stuff for me, so I forgot to do stuff for myself. So I wasn't able to learn about, say, budgeting. I didn't get to learn about stuff outside of that. Being able to hold a conversation with people outside of rugby league. If they wanted to talk about football, I could talk all day about it. But if they wanted to talk about something else, I couldn't hold a conversation because, really, I didn't have. I couldn't talk on behalf of myself. Somebody else would always do that for me. So I honestly think that there comes a time where professional athletes have to be able to go out and develop personally. They're developing professionally a lot all the time, and a lot of the concentration or the focus is put on them being great athletes, but not great people, if you know what I mean.
Of course.
Yeah. So it's a difficult one, It'll be interesting to see the research in retired players. How many of them actually go on and succeed in a career path after rugby league? Because, again, so much of their life is managed for them that they don't know how to move on from rugby league.
In regards to moving on and what you were mentioning earlier about that tough time in your life and in your career when you were playing, could you talk, Tristan and I talk a lot about living with intent and living with purpose and how important that is to get us through adversity. What was your purpose when you were facing that darkest moment of your life that allowed you to push through that and persevere? Who was your motivating force? Was it a family member? What was the reason?
Look, I never really thought about that, to be honest. I think for myself at the time, my motivating factor was just to get myself right. See, for me, when I was going through my trouble, I wasn't one of those guys, and like a lot of young men, like a lot of people, I couldn't talk about how I was feeling. Firstly, I didn't understand what it was feeling. Secondly, I didn't know how to let people know how I was feeling. So I got to a point, like I said, where I didn't want to live anymore. I attempted to take my life, and I would try it again. And I'd try it again because I didn't have the courage to tell anybody about how I was feeling. It was somebody else that basically he tapped me on the shoulder, grabbed me by the scruff of the neck, and he dragged me to see a counsellor, see a psychologist. And that for me was the beginning of me, beginning of me healing, becoming the Preston that everyone knows now. Because I wasn't going to say help. I wasn't going to get help. I wasn't going to put my hand up and say, look, I need somebody to come and let me know what I'm going through. I attempted suicide, and I was in the middle of attempting suicide when I got the knock on the door. So if it wasn't for this guy, I don't know whether I'd be here today.
Thanks for sharing that with us, Preston. I feel that through your courage, through your profile, there's a lot of people listening at home, and man, it's so important to communicate, especially when we're going through things. We were talking about earlier before you got on about how Tristan and I, when we've both collectively been in dark places, I in my past would isolate myself and not want to burden others with that.
Yeah.
And that could be a dangerous thing, that isolation.
Yeah, I think so as
Yeah.
well. I've done it plenty of times before.
Yeah.
Isolating yourself, then you realise you've got to talk to the people closest to.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's something we don't realise when we're doing it. We don't realise we're isolating ourselves from people, and that's an effect. That's a symptom of how we're feeling and what we're going through. And we did sometimes. Well, myself personally, I didn't realise I was doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, there were times where like myself and my wife, we openly talk about it now. But when I was going through that time, there were times where I'd come home from training, I'd throw my bag on the floor, and I'd just go to the room, lock myself in the room, and that's it. I had 2 children and a wife, a partner. So, and I spent all my time in the room away from them, not realising that I was isolating myself. I was burning bridges with friends. They'd ring and ask if I do stuff with them, and I'd always say no. We're doing something else. I'd lie to them. I'd say no, I'm busy. I'm doing something. Where I just didn't want to be around people because of the way I was feeling. And that was something that I myself, I thinking of how I treated my family and my friends. I was disgusted, with the way I was treating people. But down the track, I had to learn to forgive myself, and now that I understand, that was an effect of how I was feeling. So I'm not too hard on myself now.
Preston, do you something that interests me is for how much tolerant you're very. You have tolerance. You want to share knowledge and you want to educate people, and you're very compassionate. Is this something that has always been in you, or do you feel it's a duty of yours because you can impact people? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, it always has been in me. Like I credit it to my mum and dad. The fact that my parents were still around is a great thing. The fact that my dad hung around and he read me and my brothers and sisters up. He's my hero, my dad. In our communities, when I say our communities, the Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander community in Australia, there are a lot of families that grow up with a single mum, or a single dad, But a lot of the time, there's no male in their lives. So for me, a lot of stuff that my dad and my mum did, I obviously learned from them. They were good people, they were community people, and I think it was just something that was embedded into me. So once I started playing football and again realising that the position that I was in, I could make a big difference. I just didn't know how to. But then when I did go through what I went through, that's when it kind of sort of clicked. Well, this is my purpose. It's not about myself. It's about my motivation is basically to try and get people to talk about their feelings, and let them know that they're not the only ones going through what they're going through. So my purpose is to motivate, to try and inspire people to do different for themselves, but also do different for those that they come in contact with every day.
Preston, you're a brilliant mind. One question I did want to ask you was, how did you come up, because obviously you're the brainchild behind the NRL Indigenous All-Stars versus the NRL All-Stars. Where were you when you put that together?
Well, that's something that was sort of being built up. Back in 2008, they had the Rugby League World Cup in Australia.
Yep.
And as part of that World Cup, we were holding a game. There was an Australian Indigenous team versus the New Zealand Maoris team. So, two cultures that are native or that are First Nations people of their countries, and it was like a welcoming to all the teams from around the world. So we got to represent our people; they got to represent theirs. And after the game, I remember somebody saying, "Well, enjoy it because this is the last time it'll happen." Because we had such a great time in representing our families, representing our communities, We just thought it'd be such a waste if we didn't get the opportunity to do it again. And the feeling I got after the game from community, they said, something like that needs to happen again.
Yeah.
And that's where we got together with a few people, and I basically asked if we could do it again. And really it was the power of the voice of the players that wanted to get involved, not just Indigenous players, but non-Indigenous.
Yep.
Because without them, obviously, we wouldn't have anyone to play against. But it was the power of the people, really, that got the voice or got it over the line. Collectively, we made some noise, and really, it was just about trying to share what it is to be Indigenous for me in the beginning, and try and bring this divisive, I don't know which way I should put it. There's so many things that are divisive in Australia, or globally, really. People don't understand who we are as Aboriginal people. We live differently in some ways, and it was really a bit of education around who we are, apart from the fact that we get a great game of footy in the same week.
Prest, how does it feel that they named the man of the match after you, the Preston Campbell medal, and also you got to captain the Indigenous All-Stars in the first ever game?
Yeah, that was amazing. It was an honour to run out and play. Like I said, it's a different feeling. Like, I love playing for my clubs, and I give everything for all the clubs that I played for. I repaid the faith that they had in me, and I tried my best. But it's just a different feeling. There were times where you just wanted to cry because I was so overwhelmed with pride in what I was doing. And it was something that I'll hold dearly for the rest of my life. For them to name the medal after me, I tried my best to talk them out of it. And still to this day, I try my best to talk them out of naming it. It's one of those things. I just feel that there are other people out there worthy of having their name on a medal.
Definitely. Do you remember much of your first grade debut? Because the first time I saw you play was 1998. It was the last round of the competition. I went for the Sharks, like I've told you before. You were playing on the wing for Gold Coast, and you absolutely torched us that day. And then a few weeks later, I heard that we signed you, and I was ecstatic because.
It was that last game that really got me to the Sharks.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the Chargers who I played with that year, we went under.
Yeah.
The changes went from Super League and ARL to NRL. So it was ourselves, it was Western Reds, Rams, and the Crushers who kind of got the boot. And I got an opportunity to go to the Sharks, but my debut in '98 was against the Balmain Tigers down at Leichhardt Oval.
Yep.
It's one of those ones that obviously people remember their first game, and I love Leichhardt for that reason. It's my favourite place to play because it was my first place I played. We got touched up 54-4, but
wow.
it was one of those things that I just, running out and people pouring beer on you, people spitting at you, and all of that sort of stuff at the game, and you're like, oh, geez. I was scared, but at the same time excited to be out there.
We talk a lot about, I love what you said earlier about comfort zones, and I could tell that that's an important part of who you are, constantly evolving, challenging yourself to grow. Could you share with us a little bit? Are you doing anything currently that, maybe old Preston would say, man, I'm out of my comfort zone doing this? Are you doing anything new?
Well, not really.
Are you going to be on TV in a little bit?
Yeah.
Do we see a clip?
Family Feud, aren't you?
Family Feud, yeah. Well, that's something, I guess. I mean, but I'm used to being in front of cameras, that sort of stuff. But Family Feud, it's a great experience. Young guy coming from the bush, never ever thought I'd see myself on TV. But yeah, it was something that I enjoyed. Look, it was for a great cause, and that was the reason I wanted to be a part of it. For a couple of charities, so big ups to them and the guys that were involved. I had a great time.
Could you talk a little? Could you share with us some of those charities that you speak highly of? So maybe our listeners could maybe get involved if they hear something.
Obviously, stuff like Beyond Blue, Living. just most charities that kind of do stuff around mental health. I do support stuff around breast cancer. I've had family members that have unfortunately passed through breast cancer. And it was mainly stuff that I'm passionate in because I've had personal experience in it, and that's usually what we do, don't we?
Yeah.
We don't kind of see that sort of stuff when things are going rosy, but if yourself or a loved one's affected by it, I mean, again, I probably wouldn't have understood what it meant to have a mental illness if I didn't go through it myself. So obviously that's why I'm so passionate about it. I've lost loved ones to cancer. I've lost loved ones to drugs. I've lost loved ones to alcohol. So there's so many things out there that I'm passionate about being involved in, trying to spread the word, spread some good messages around why it's so important to look after yourself, both mentally and physically. So I can't really, anything that's got to do with anything good, I try to get involved with it. I don't say no to much. I just try to get out and help where I can.
Perception's a wonderful thing, and it could be a very powerful tool. And you've been through a lot of adversity. Is there any one specific time in your life that you're looking back that at the time it seemed like it was the most awful experience, but right now at this moment you could tell yourself you needed to go through that so you could evolve into the man you are today?
Yeah. Well, I guess my second attempt to take my life. I remember sitting out at Penrith, sitting on the side of the bed, and I had a bunch of tablets on my bedside table, which I was about to just consume. I got to my first one, got to my second one, and I'm like, oh God, how did I get here? I got this knock on the door, and I ignored it. And after a couple of minutes, I took another tablet. I got this knock on the door again. But that was a time where I just thought, how did I get here? What the hell am I doing? I can't stop myself. I need to do this. That was probably my lowest of lowest. And to think of where I am now compared to then, I don't know how to describe it. It's one of those things where obviously I go back to then to learn about it, try and move forward. But then I'm so glad that I'm here where I am now, to be able to share my story and hopefully get somebody else to take something from it.
Press, you won the premiership with Penrith Panthers. That one would have been, a year after what you were just talking about then?
It was the same year.
Wow.
It was the same year. So I'd gone from having a great year in 2001 with the Cronulla Sharks, and 2002 was really when I started going through my troubles. So in late 2002, it was the day before Christmas, I attempted to, I drove my car off a road into a tree, and that was in December, and probably 8 to 9 months I was going through, trying to get myself right. So you see in the grand final when we did win that premiership that I was so emotional because I felt like I just went through so much, and it was just such a big achievement for myself and the team, So it was a really, really tough 9 to 10 months. And even through all of that, my teammates, people in the community had no idea what I was going through. At this time, I was seeing the counsellor. Only guys that really knew it was Chief Executive Officer of the Panthers and the coach of the Panthers.
How close was your bond to Johnny Lang? Because obviously he's the one that's changed your position at the Sharks from fullback to halfback. He brought you over to Penrith. How close were you to Johnny?
Yeah, look, Lang is one of those guys who saw potential in me. He was the guy that wanted me to go down to Sharks from the Gold Coast in the early days. So on a professional level, he's one of those guys that taught me so much how to football, how to be a rugby league player, and he taught me best ways to look after myself, because he's really big on guys preserving themselves. But on a personal level, he's one of those guys now. And Johnny Lang, I would say, was a guy who was knocking on the door while I was sitting on the side of my bed. You know, so he was the guy that dragged me to the counsellor, to the psychologist. So Johnny Lang is like another dad for me. You know, so on a personal level, he is very close. You know, I basically owe him my life.
Awesome. That's just so open, Preston. Really.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. We're really fortunate to have you share this with us.
It's one of those things. So in the beginning, I was ashamed. I wasn't really sure about how people would react to it. And you guys obviously are reacting in the way it should be reacted to. But then you have people that'll flat out deny that mental health isn't a problem. You know, it's not out there. It's a myth. You know, but I tell my story again. My motivation is to hopefully try and get somebody to hear what I'm saying in the hope that they'll want to make a difference for themselves or a family member or a friend that they think might be going through some troubles. Yeah.
Definitely. Just to end on a more light-hearted note after everything we've just been speaking about, we've just got a question we always ask our guests, Preston. So, Preston, you're going to be hosting a dinner party with 5 invites. Now,
Yeah.
you can't invite your close family or friends, but you've got 5 invites. Dead or alive, Presto. You can invite anyone you want. Who will those people be, man?
Well, I guess on a Nelson Mandela would be one guy I'd like to have at the. I think he's got his insight into everything is great. He's a big believer, like myself, that sport can make a really big difference to society. So he's one guy, Nelson Mandela. I know you said family or friends, probably a no-go, but I'd like to have my grandfather there, if that's all right.
Yeah, you can do it, mate. For you, I'll allow it.
I didn't get to spend much time with him. Like, I was too young to really appreciate the sort of person he was.
Yep.
He's a very cultural man, so I wish he was around just so I can learn a little bit more around culture.
Definitely.
Michael Jordan. I love Michael Jordan. Back in the 90s, I collected cards.
Did you still have the upper decks?
Yes.
Yeah.
I still got his rookie card.
You got his rookie card.
I got his rookie card. Yeah, I'd love to have him sign it.
I collect cards, and man, so
we got a rookie card here in Australia, Michael Jordan. It was amazing.
Dude, that's such an important card.
You might have the only one in Australia.
Yeah, it's a very important card.
Yeah. Who else?
You got 2 more, Presto?
2 more. Oh man, this is really hard. This is really hard. I don't really have too many more people that I'd like to invite. We have to have somebody there who's a great singer.
Who do you like, mate?
To entertain. Troy Casadale.
You're a country boy, eh?
Yeah, I love my country music. My favourite country music singer. And I'd like to invite a lady over. April Winfrey. April Winfrey is someone I'd like to spend some time with. Yeah.
Very, very intelligent. Preston, also a question we ask, but you've given us so much advice and so much awesome inspiration. Could you just leave us with maybe one sentence, or you're teaching people, you're always sharing knowledge, one little bit of advice that you could give our listeners who maybe are struggling out there that could help them through the day?
Yeah, I think it's really important to know yourself. I know a lot of the time, especially with sort of society we live in these days, with Facebook, with Instagram, I find that people know more about other people than they do themselves. So I think it's important that they get to know themselves and find out what makes them tick, and all the good stuff that makes them tick in a positive way, work hard on it. And the stuff that's negative in their life, work hard on not having that around. So I guess get to the point is to know yourself and knows what makes you click.
Thank you for that.
Presto, just before you go also, just with the Preston Campbell Foundation, what's the best way for people to find that? Is that online? You're creating a website, aren't you, in the middle of it?
Yeah, we're creating a website at the moment. We're a new organisation, but at the moment we've got the Preston Campbell Foundation Facebook page.
Yep.
So go on there, and if you want to find any information out, just leave a message. I'll personally respond to you, and whatever information you need to know about it, it all should be on there.
Definitely. Preston, we have to one day meet in person, maybe go for lunch or something in Gold Coast.
Yeah. No,
this has been brilliant, buddy.
Thank you so much for your time, Presto.
No, thank you, guys.
Presto,
I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's cool, man. Thank you so much for your time, man. I've still got my number 7 Sharks jersey in my mum's house, man. Trust me.
That's awesome.
Presto.
I'll sign it for you one day.
You're awesome, man. Really appreciate your time today, man.
Have a good
No,
one.
right, bud.
We'll speak soon.
No worries. Be good.
See you. Wow, that was
a pleasure, man.
That was our most in-depth interview. You come up with some awesome questions there, man.
Well, I mean, it's really important for me. Like, I've never heard of him, and I'm just until you mentioned him. So sometimes that's intimidating, and also I get to learn.
No one's been that open with me in my whole life.
And this guy, man, I always take notes when we talk to people, and it reminds me of like Campbell when he talks about find the giants. He's a giant, and then there's a metaphor there because his physical stature is tiny. He's like an undersized giant.
Yeah.
Very brave.
Wow.
Courageous.
Yeah, we speak about speaking to heroes. He was one of mine. He was inspiration for me. I was tiny growing up. I needed inspiration. I needed someone to look at, someone to show me the way, and that was Preston Campbell. Like Preston, like I said, we spoke at the top of the show. He's you've got to say that, like we did have a few cliches here and there, but he's small in stature, but his heart is huge, man. Like,
yeah, and the word cliche gets, whenever you're in this realm of wanting people to learn and grow and evolve, it's just filled with cliches, and I don't want cliche to sound like a bad thing, because if you're living your life that way, if your path is genuinely filled with helping people, then you can say whatever you want.
Definitely.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter if somebody has said it or done it before. With Preston Campbell, though, when we look at firsts, I don't know if he's the smallest guy to ever win a premiership or ever to win your guys' version of the MVP award.
He would be.
And 5'5" is small.
Yeah, that's the same size as me.
5'5". I used to use my height as an excuse for not making it to the next level, and I'm 5'11".
Yeah.
5'5" is small.
Yeah.
And also to have the courage and being so brave about talking about those struggles and then wanting to share it with people. There's a thing going.
Yeah, the sharing.
The sharing's huge. There's a thing going on, a movement right now involved with professional football in America about finally opening up and speaking about concussions and the effect it has on these guys after they retire. And some guys during their career, and if you look over the last 15 years, there have been some horrific moments of these NFL players because of the head trauma, the depression that causes that, and stories of murder and all, without getting too dark. But it's important that we talk about this.
Yeah.
And I wonder if, I don't know where the stance is with doing the CT scans, and there's that new movie coming out called Concussion.
Yeah, with Will Smith.
Will Smith. Is that a topic in the NRL? Because you guys aren't even wearing helmets.
Yeah, I don't think it's been explored as much as the NFL have done, but I think it's something they do need to touch on, because there has been some tragedies over the llast few years that could have been avoided if hopefully they got the right amount of help, you know what I mean?
And there's studies that have come out recently that it doesn't, before we used to think that it takes a certain amount of force to cause trauma on the brain to causing concussion. But now they're showing a simple slap could generate enough force in the specific part of the head, the skull.
Yeah, you just don't know, do you?
You just don't know, and then you don't
People got different sort of skull structures.
The angle, the speed.
Yeah, you just don't know what you can do, so you've got to be careful.
To hear Preston went through that and then won that award, he was at. How interesting is that, the war, the anomaly of life, that when he's at his most highest.
So his year, he went from the lowest to the highest, pretty much moments in his life, to go from a stage where he wanted to
Just end it.
kill himself.
A couple times.
Yeah. To winning the premiership, the highest. Like, for example, so it would be winning the Super Bowl for someone that's listening into America. For us, the Australian NRL, the competition is the grand final. And that year that he wanted to end his life.
So he won the grand final and the MVP?
No, not in the same year. So what
Okay.
happened was, so 2001 he won the MVP,
Yep.
the Player of the Year, in same terms,
Yep.
at Cronulla Sharks. 2002, the new coach came in, booted Preston out,
Okay.
and that's when it all started. 2003, the old coach from Cronulla Sharks,
Johnny Lang?
was at Penrith Panthers,
Okay.
and then he picked up Presto. Obviously, everything that happened at the start of that year, and then Presto was still playing, going through it all still, and by October, so it's always on that long weekend in October, the first, the Labor Day weekend.
Yeah.
That's when the NRL Grand Final's on, and that was the biggest moment of his life. He won the premiership, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. You really get to see the measure of a man too, to how you come back from it. You could throw any quote you want to hear because you could find them if you just look for them. They're everywhere about the making of a man, the measure of a man. It's not about how we act when we're during our triumphant days. It's about how we overcome.
Yeah, that's what I was about to mention to you too. Like, I don't think the biggest achievement in his life is winning the premiership. His biggest achievement is him finding himself and trying to teach people now.
That's what he said too. He wanted to get himself right, which was interesting. When I asked the question about why he even chose to fight it, why he even wanted to. Some people say, "Oh, I battled out of this dark state because my mother would be sad," or some people would say I had a family. Or he talked about the light bulb, that aha moment, which we talk about, and it sounded to me it was more of a duty, an interpersonal voice that said, hey, this isn't the right way for you. You have a bigger purpose.
Yeah.
And that purpose is obviously to share that story, which is very fascinating. Something that was so dark that could have ended in the worst way was almost a necessity for his future self to share with others who were experiencing that same moment.
And think about if Preston was taken away from us, how many lives he's kind of saved now and how many people he puts on the right stead. If we didn't have Preston now, Jesus.
But it's interesting to see that the NRL was just a phase in his life. That being an athlete was just him being an athlete, but the purpose is way more than just that. The world needs more. I think Tupac actually said it. Tupac said in an early interview, and the guy has amazing. I love listening to old Tupac interviews, but he talks about we don't need more rappers, we don't need movie stars. We need more teachers.
Yeah.
We need more people to inspire people.
I think people get the wrong idea about Tupac. They don't actually realize how educated.
Man, he was a poet. He was a visionary.
Like his schooling and stuff. People don't realize the schools and what he.
But what he stood for, he's in his early 20s. You're watching him give interviews at 19, 20 years old, talking about peace. And he's talking about why are we raging wars outside of our country when there's wars on the streets in our own communities, and why these people have 5-6-story houses when these people can't even afford food to eat in the same country.
Yeah.
And not to take, but back to the teaching and inspiring and sharing knowledge with people. It's not our duty. Like, that's another thing. For Preston to share those stories, one would say he doesn't have to do it. There's some people. He
doesn't have to do it.
Yeah, it's not. But and then I guess it comes down to your values and how you're wired, and then the purpose of that to see if maybe if I could help somebody, I shouldn't just keep this.
Yeah.
That would be us like chatting with Preston and just keeping it.
Yeah, that's
and
one of
not
those
sharing
things.
it.
It touched me, man. Like, I had a bit of water in my eyes. I've got to be honest. Like, some of the stuff he was saying, like, Jesus.
The second attempt. Think about the mindset of somebody, too. I was talking to you earlier before we got on the air with Preston about there's this article written about the mindset and the psychology of mental illness and people who choose to take their own lives and the ways they do it. And, there's so many different ways, but put yourself, let's paint a picture behind a vehicle. That's a weapon. It's huge. It's so heavy and it's fast and it's the velocity. And then to ram it into an inanimate object like a tree, it just pretty much goes to show you that, like, damn, that's a dark state.
Yeah, definitely. But I'm really glad he shared that with us, and I hope there's no doubt everyone got something out of that one. So, guys, make sure that mental health is a huge thing in our society, and to have someone like Preston Campbell share his story, I think is something that if you are listening right now, the best thing for you to do is share it with other people.
Communicate.
Tell people about what Preston just did, and it's not about us gaining support or anything like that. It's about people, listening to someone that's experienced it firsthand, and forget the fact that he's a superstar NRL player. He's a superstar human being.
No, I feel that if you're listening and you're struggling with depression, you communicate that with the people around you. You don't internalize it. You feel comfortable enough and you feel more self-worth to know that people do care about you and you're not alone. I've been there. I've never taken it to that level, but I've had my dark moments, and a lot of times that's self-sabotage. That's just me not understanding my self-worth. And everything I've read about it as well, a great point a psychologist made was depression and suicide is a mind thing. It's a mental issue. The body doesn't want to finish itself. The body doesn't want to die. It's the mind. So let's fix that issue. Let's talk. And the only way to fix the mind, we got to talk about it. We have to communicate. We have to acknowledge that there's something wrong there. And the only way to acknowledge it is to reach out to people. And through Preston, if you're listening, you can realize that no matter what you do for a living, if you're an iron worker, if you're a coach, if you're a star athlete, the point is everybody goes through it. Yeah. It's not a stigma. There's no, oh, you're weaker than me. No, it's life. You go through it. So share that with the people close to you, and hopefully you'll get through it.
Yeah, if you're in Australia, guys, something I did find was Lifeline. So if you are going through a few issues at the moment and you've got no one, because everyone, they might not want to speak to their mother or girlfriend about it, maybe the first step might be Lifeline. So I've got a number, 13 11 14. That's 13 11 14. So get in touch with Lifeline if you're in Australia.
It's an anonymous hotline too. I'm pretty sure you don't have to share your name.
You don't at all. So get in touch with them. They're qualified people that can help you. But please do look up the Preston Campbell Foundation, doing some wonderful things in the community, guys. So if you're on Facebook, give him a quick like and make sure you follow him because he's doing some outstanding stuff in the community.
I wrote a quote down that when he was speaking about why you were talking about the indigenous game versus the NRL players. I butchered that, but he said, "Power of the voice of the players." He is the power,
no doubt,
of the voice, because he is that motivating factor to allow all this to happen. And it's really fortunate we got to chat with him.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, that's a wrap up of that episode. It was another awesome one. So, Jonny Stofko, you have a wonderful day. It was awesome sharing that experience with you, man.
Have a great day too, Tristan. Appreciate you sharing the knowledge about Preston Campbell.
Cool. We'll see you soon, guys.
Peace.
It makes me wanna creep.
I got something for your mind, your body, and your soul. I got something for your mind, your body, and your soul.
The Vision Board Podcast, hosted by Jonny Stofko and Tristan Campbell.